there was really nobody with eyes on these folks. If that was my mom or dad or grandparent or anyone, I would want someone watching what was going on with medication.
I experienced our healthcare system from a patient perspective. And as knowledgeable as I am, it was difficult. And so it really shifted my perspective to, hey, we've got to do something for these patients.
I was getting folks that were asking about taking this path, wanting to become patient advocates or to strengthen patient-centered care models, even within an existing practice.
I'm really excited to be partnered with you, Andrea, on this and be able to provide all of the things that a pharmacist would need to become the best patient advocate for their patients that they can be.
I'm Dr. Andrea. I'm a pharmacist with 30 years of experience, with a background in geriatric pharmacy that's now shifted over to full-time patient advocacy. And with me is my good friend, great friend, partner, in this venture that we're going to be talking about today, Dr. Asha Bohannon. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Andrea. So yes, I am Dr. Asha, and I've been a pharmacist for over 20 years and have jumped into a whole bunch of different things. We're both entrepreneurs, really excited about the venture that we're going to be talking about today, all around patient advocacy. Andrea and I are very passionate about helping patients decipher and navigate the healthcare world that we live in today. So excited to be here with you, Andrea, and to talk about all things patient advocacy and what we have coming up.
Yes. And it's interesting. When I heard you say that you're over 20, I was like, wow, a half century of experience between us. I mean, surely that gets us like wise sage age credit.
50 plus years of experience. I think that's pretty good.
and in a variety of settings. And so just so people have a little bit more understanding of where we come from, I started working in a pharmacy probably when I was 8 years old. My dad was a pharmacist, so I grew up literally in the pharmacy. Went to pharmacy school. My first decade was in the community with a major chain pharmacy. I actually worked for the militaries overseas with the Army for 3 years as well, which was a completely different experience, very eye-opening. I'm very honored that I had the time to serve, the soldiers while I was living in Germany and the community, because it wasn't just military, it was family, spouses, just the broader network there. When I came back to the States, I had an opportunity to go into consulting, and really that was the shift that took me over into geriatrics. I found really my purpose in that community. And so I was a consultant for a little over 7 years, and then adjunct faculty, and then full-time faculty at a school of nursing and a school of pharmacy. And that was really where I had that opportunity to take my clinical services, my experience from all sides of the practice into a long-term care setting and try to really embrace that advocacy spirit through, my role as a pharmacist, because I quickly realized when it came to medications, it seemed very few people had the patient or the resident's back, right? The pharmacist was only in the building one time a month. Access and communication between pharmacy and nursing was, intermittent. And while there was a pharmacy available, there was really nobody with eyes on these folks. And so I became very committed to that. If that was my mom or dad or grandparent or anyone, I would want someone watching what was going on with medications. And the medications, it was chaos. And so when I ended up coming to North Carolina, when we ended up meeting in 2018, that was what I was coming from. And I just knew that I could no longer function in that traditional space. I wanted to go entrepreneurial. And I just had to figure out how I could take all of that and then house it in something that could better serve the community and meet my new life demands, because my dad had just been diagnosed with dementia. So, that was a little longer, but yeah, that gives you some background as to how I ended up where I am, what I'm bringing to this project and to my clients, and why Asha and it was just such a fantastic meeting. And this is just, to me, like it serves me to help more people, and how we can leverage that to help patients and pharmacists in general.
I love it. Yeah. I echo everything you said. So we did meet 5 years ago, which is just insane that it's been that long, but at the same time, it feels like just yesterday too. So my background is I focused a lot heavily on diabetes and pre-diabetes early on in my education and career. I was an independent pharmacist in pharmacy for many years. And then again, got to the point where I was tired of sick care. I was tired of not being able to help my patients. And just like you said, Andrea, like watching these patients not have the right information, not having anyone have their back, even in an ambulatory setting, it's just not, it's not there. And so I watched a lot of patients feel like they're not being heard. And so my route to patient advocacy came from that, of patients not feeling heard, feeling like I was feeding people's illnesses and not being able to really help them understand. And one thing that I know about pharmacists is that we know we have the resources and tools to figure things out. Mm-hmm. We are problem solvers to the core. And so being able to share that knowledge with people in a different light is really important. And then fast forward to a few years later, after me having children, I ran into some health issues myself, burnout from my job, my career, all of these things. And I experienced our healthcare system from a patient perspective. And as knowledgeable as I am, it was difficult. And so it really shifted my perspective to, hey, we've got to do something for these patients. There's a whole lot that we can do around patient advocacy. But that was my kind of perspective. And then from the pharmacist, I do feel like as pharmacists, we are at a very big crossroads, and it's very volatile in our profession right now. And so we've got to even advocate for our fellow pharmacists and be able to say, hey, we're standing up and we're not taking this any longer. And so this is where I think our program is going to be a great jump into patient advocacy for a lot of pharmacists. So I want you to go ahead and share. I'll share the name because I'm really excited about it. It's the A4. It's Advocacy Accelerator with Andrea and Asha. And so I'm excited to announce that we're going to be partnering together in this joint venture. And so if you want to get started, Andrea, on explaining what the Advocacy Accelerator is, I'd love to have you do that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this because I can remember it was probably I want to say it was this summer. We were going to a conference. We were on the airplane together. We were talking. And I said, I've reached a point where people are asking me about advocacy, how I make this shift, and really that shift started 2018, 2019 through COVID, getting, understanding business models, just the learning curve that's associated with running a company, running a business, attracting clients, marketing, all that on your own. Meanwhile, also doing the work, right? Because I am a patient advocate, right? So if I'm with a client at a doctor's office, then I'm not attracting a client or a customer or something. So you don't have all of this in your head when you're a traditional go to work, get a paycheck, work for someone. And I was telling you that I was getting folks that were asking about taking this path, wanting to become patient advocates or to strengthen patient-centered care models, even within an existing practice, right? Because we've talked about the nuances. Patient advocacy is a dedicated path. It is a dedicated thing. It is a verb. It's it's also a noun, to advocate and to be one. And so the nuances of it, how could you strengthen advocacy services within an existing model, or like me, decide that you're going to be a patient advocate, which is healthcare navigation and decision support. And because now as an advocate, and maybe I've always had this advocacy lens, I wanted to serve these folks, these pharmacists that were coming to me. And yet I knew that if I'm with clients all the time, how do I deliver 100% to them? How do I deliver 100% to the client, the patient, and to these coaching clients, right? As a solopreneur, I do it all, right? The finance, the bookkeeping, the marketing, the clinical work.
All
and
of the above.
So, we're talking about it, and I'm sitting here thinking, wait a second, I'm sitting next to the creator of Impact Pharmacist, the one who wrote the book on this, the one who helped me get started, in 2019, when you walked me through like a very early incarnation of that or iteration of that. And I was like, why are we not working together? Because as much as I enjoy the business of advocacy and doing this, I'm in client rooms, with patients. I was at a doctor appointment this morning. How do I do both? And that was the moment where it's like, wait, we're pharmacists. We're telling people you don't have to do it all. This is what collaboration is about. And the beautiful part about entrepreneurship is realizing, wait, time out. I need the specialist on that piece. Let's get them on my team. What does that collaboration look like? And so there you go. The A4 Advocacy Accelerator with Andrea and Asha. We just love all the A's. It's just completely bizarre. That all worked. And so, that's what we're doing.
Yes, that's how we started we started on more of the business side. So just to give people, I did not mention this at the beginning, but I started my entrepreneurial journey back in 2012. So I've been at this for quite some time. And then in 2018, I partnered with my husband, Eric, who has his MBA focused on entrepreneurship. And what we realized around 2018, 2019, when we met, was that pharmacists do not have that knowledge. And you can go and get an MBA or do whatever you need to do. But at the same time, you're paying a whole lot of money for a lot of information you don't need. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to put together this Impact Pharmacist program that is basically your MBA for pharmacists. It gives you what you need to know to start your own clinical consulting practice from point A to point Z. And so in the advocacy space, and this is where Andrea and I were like, hey, why don't we do this and join forces? Because I want to help you be able to do from point A to point Z when it comes to business and business management and learning how to do those things and walk alongside of you on this journey, along with the advocacy piece that Andrea brings in. She is in the fire all the time with these patients. I love hearing her dedication and what she does and how she's been doing it this entire time. And so she's going to be able to provide for you the information that you need from an advocate perspective. And then what we wanted to bring in this is more of that. I'm going to call it handholding. It's a little bit more handholding of, giving you the information that you need for you. And then as you're going through and seeing patients, Andrea's going to be there to help you have some of that decision support and be able to give you the right answers and tools and resources that you need in the moment during that time. So I'm really excited to be partnered with you, Andrea, on this and be able to provide all of the things that a pharmacist would need to become the best patient advocate for their patients that they can be.
Right. And I think that why in this particular joint venture, it works so well is that as pharmacists, we understand clinical work. Like if we built a business and we wanted to do MTM or medication therapy management or medication reviews, we've been, or, deprescribing or, dosing adjustments and things like that, collaborative practice, throwing out a bunch of the buzzwords that pharmacists are familiar with. If we were to build a business that was solely in that sphere, we would be used to the model of, a client comes in, we do an intake, maybe it's 15 minutes, maybe it's 30 minutes, right? That you might be with this person, but you're really focused on the immediate problem at hand. It's in some ways, and I'm not diminishing it, it's an expanded service, it's a deeper service, but it is still very much in that flow of what a traditional pharmacist does. I can tell you that patient advocacy, while I believe that all pharmacists in spirit are patient advocates, it is completely different when you get the text from a client who doesn't want to go to the emergency department because they feel that they're not going to be listened to. And you're like texting saying, look, I am not 911. If you need 911, you go, I'll meet you. And you are then like in the room with people in their most vulnerable moments. And you're with people sometimes for hours, for days, potentially months or even longer. And so there's a different piece of, it's not protecting yourself, but it's understanding how to develop the ability to be in other people's pain, to be so near it without taking it on. Yes, there are pharmacists who work in critical care and emergency departments. But even then, I think this is different because it's a very intimate relationship to where, like, I have a client who, they hug me every time I leave. And that is just not that's just not experience that I think many of us are used to. And not that that's bad, but we just have it's a different way of thinking. And so that this allows me to focus on what it's been like as a pharmacist, shifting into patient advocacy, and in many ways being, flooded in a good way with this direct patient care in a path that I've never experienced before. And so the information I can bring is, like, how do you find equanimity and not feel like a flag whipped around on a flagpole in a hurricane, right? How do you problem solve, maintaining the goals, values, and desires of the patient, even if the evidence is saying something different, right? Because as a clinician, we would stick to the evidence. But if the patient truly wants something, you can talk risk benefit, you can kind of have discussions about it, but their goals become my goals for them. And so this is a very different conversation. And that's what I'll be bringing. Meanwhile, you'll be talking about, where do you want to practice? What is your thing? For me, it's geriatrics, but I haven't only worked with geriatrics.
Yeah, no, I think that's the important part. I want to go back to what you just said, though, and really emphasize that pharmacists are really poised to do this.
Oh my gosh.
Of anybody that I know, because we can talk so intelligently, not only about the medications, but about the system. And we're so, I'm going to say, by the book a lot of times, that we know what needs to happen. And so we are going to be advocating for those patients in such a different way than they've ever felt before. And if there's ever a time in healthcare that this is necessary, we need to lock arms together to be able to do this for as many people as we can. Exactly. Across the country, across the world for that matter. But really for, if we're going to talk just in the US right now, but I think, for me, as my piece in this is to help you be able to do that in such a way that you're not worried about the rest of your business. That's taken care of. It's up and running. You've got the right tools and resources in place, that you don't feel like that's going to fall under you. I'm all about, one of my favorite analogies that I literally say all the time is about, like, building a house. You would not want to put up the 2x4s and the roof and the walls and those kinds of things without having a solid foundation. Mm-hmm. And you cannot build a business if you do not have a solid foundation. And so this is about building that solid foundation for you, your business, your life. This also has to incorporate your life. As Andrea mentioned, like, you are going to get into some client situations that are going to creep into your normal day-to-day. Yeah. And so you're going to have to learn how to be able to incorporate all of these things, including running the business itself. And that's what I'm here to do, is to help you along that pathway and help you build that solid foundation. So that's an important piece to all of this.
Right. When I think about, like, in 2018, 2019, we were at those first, entrepreneur conversations. Everybody's trying to figure out what they're going to name their business and what's my website going to look like. And I'm like, no, time out, stop. I mean, you learn very quickly that, there's a fair chance that, for some people, what you even build originally is not where you're going to end up. Talk about the cyclical and circular nature of this. I originally started with travel, health, and wellness, which was a form of advocacy. I was like toe dipping, into the advocacy space in a very, very niche market that kept it safe for me. Well, COVID then happened. And so then I was like, well, wait a second, really, that was advocacy. So then I expanded. Thank goodness the business name I picked, Wayfinder Advantage, was able to, encompass that, because reality, that's what I do, is I help people find a way, Wayfinder, and it's an advantage to have somebody else in your team, right? So thank goodness that was expansive, but that's not the name of the real company, right? And this is the type of stuff you talk about. What is your LLC and what's the DBA, right? Doing business as. Yeah, I mean, you can Google that. You can get lost in the weeds. And then the creative, like, ooh, I could do all these things. That's energy. You don't have to spend it there if you don't want. And if you've got someone like you, Asha, to help guide through, that's just one minor aspect, but it keeps it tight. Websites, sometimes you need them. Other times you don't. And that's the type of stuff that, with your business background, how do you build something that you can manage that aligns with your core values, with the way you want to work, with the way you want to have, that meets success defined as what you do. And then for me, being able to cover down on that advocacy piece to make sure that, you mentioned burnout. Pharmacists are very familiar with burnout. You don't need to come into advocacy to then become burned out here. And I can tell you that advocates, we get capped out unless we expand, right? Because depending on what type of client you're taking, how many acute cases can you manage solely as yourself? And so you'll talk about marketing and positioning. And if you're a pharmacist out there and you're going, well, wait a second, I might have missed this. Maybe there's already a pharmacist in, the Raleigh area that's an advocate. Let me tell you, there's advocates all around my community. I've met them. That's fantastic because we crosstalk, we refer, we act as lifelines. It's actually a very collaborative spirit. I was on the phone yesterday with someone from the West Coast about another advocate, just learning about her challenging case, mine. I mean, it's a beauty of collaboration that I actually didn't feel in pharmacy. So it's almost like, I don't want to say, I don't mind like turf wars and like planting flags. I mean, because we're here for the good of our people. And that's what it's about. And there's so much need and so much chaos and dismissive behavior and, and fractured, silos. And even something as simple as this morning, the awareness in an office visit where people are getting labs frequently done. And I'm like, well, can't they get that lab here? I mean, they could literally walk here. And the provider's like, oh, yeah, we could do it here. And I'm not criticizing, but nobody had thought about it. Instead, you've got people driving 35, 40 minutes away to go get a lab, thinking that that's where they have to get it when they can literally
walk across the street.
I mean, that's a huge victory. It's tiny in some people's minds. That might be tiny, but for the person,
that's massive.
Huge.
Mm-hmm. There's so much to navigate here for the patient, for the pharmacist, for everybody involved. And I think, when you talk about, I see a lot of advocates everywhere. Right now, at this point in time, there's no market saturation on anything that we're doing. Part of what the program with the business is we talk about the market and competitive analysis, and we look at it, but really it's a blue ocean. It's a blue ocean. And that terminology means that there is not too much out there. There's not enough out there right now. And so this is our opportunity to be able to grab the bull by the horns, so to speak, and really change the face of what the healthcare system looks like from a patient perspective and be able to help navigate that. But then also having all of the other things in place that make you feel like you're in the right place. And that shiny object syndrome, I call it your SOS. This is what I'm here to do, is to really help you as your lifeline, not get sucked into the shiny object syndrome, because there is a lot of that right now in particular. And I think this is a really good time just to say, if this is what you want to do and patient advocacy is something that you're really interested in, there are different niches within that. And we will work together to figure that out together. That is not something that you have to come into the program knowing what exactly you want to focus on or which population you want to focus on. This is what we work together to decide. And if there's anything that I can say right now, it is so necessary for us to be able to jump into this patient advocacy realm because we are so poised to do so as far as this.
Well, I love the clinical skills, and I appreciate every pharmacist who is in the weeds clinically, doing dose calculations and medication adjustments and collaborative practice and all of that. For me personally, the way that I wanted to practice pharmacy, I am practicing in some ways at the scope of what I wanted to do
right
now for almost like the first time in 30 years, because I didn't want to be in the weeds doing the clinical discussions. We've talked about, I don't want to do PGX testing. You provided me a consult for somebody to talk to someone. I don't want to do it. I don't need more. I'm going to open up a can of worms for the pharmacists. I don't necessarily need more initials after my name. I'm good with what I got, And the beauty of advocacy for me is that it's not just my clinical academic experience of 30 years as a pharmacist. It's the betrayal that I felt by my dad's physician of probably 40 years when he said, I'm sorry, I have a good relationship with that doctor. I'm not going to tell him that we want a second opinion. If you want to do that, you go ahead. Who does that to a daughter trying to speak for a parent, right? To get the dad the care that he wants. So I'm also bringing the experience of what I've seen in my family. My dad had dementia, mom had cancer. I'm also bringing, and this is the beautiful part about what I love about advocacy, at least from the way that I've built my practice, I bring diving and sailing in all the time. And so like the problem solving that I do while I'm underwater, or the problem solving that I've done, docking a boat, it's amazing how I've learned about while I'm docking a boat, communication techniques that help me in a tense client conversation. And so I can bring in all these different facets of me. And so it's really what's kept me going recently, because, I'd pretty much given up on healthcare. And I was like, I'm ready to peace out, which is sad.
Absolutely. I gotta open up that can of worms again, Andrea, because you and I are on the same boat when it comes to the extra letters behind your name. Mm-hmm. I have a bunch, you have a bunch, but at the end of the day, what I see pharmacists doing right now is seeking the extra letters. And to be quite frank, nobody knows what those extra letters mean after your name. We have what we need, and we can seek what we do need further. But the idea is find out what you need further first. Don't seek the letters. And I'm right there with you when it comes to the patient advocacy. I'm in the thick of taking care of elderly parents right now. I have younger children. I'm in that sandwich generation. And man, if I don't even need an advocate for myself.
Well, we've talked about that, right? I don't have children. And so I'm like, I need to start thinking about who's going to be my advocate if I ever need one, because my husband's not going to have the bandwidth.
Right, exactly. We all need an advocate in some fashion. And so again, this program that we have built together is to help to expand the amount of advocates that are out there for patients in the healthcare world right now. But it's also to be an advocate for the pharmacist that wants to be that advocate.
Right.
And I think that's an important thing that I want everybody to hear, is that you need an advocate and you need a guide just as much as the patient that you're serving.
Exactly.
In order to be there for that patient and that patient population that you want to serve, you have to be advocated for, feel fulfilled. You can't pour from an empty cup. How many other, analogies can I create? Right. But it's all true. And so this is what our program brings all of that together.
Right.
You be the best person that you can be, to be the best advocate you can be for your patients.
Right. And additionally, what I do love about it is when we laid this all out, we were like, okay, I knew what you had built with Impact Pharmacist, and I knew like the skill sets you brought into it. And we wanted to make sure that people didn't feel like they were just clicking through another slide deck, or another module, and then at the end get some kind of a piece of paper. And I have pieces of paper, I'm a certified travel coach. Yay. And I love that. I love that thing. I mean, I enjoyed the program, so I'm not against getting a piece of paper, but we wanted to make sure it went above and beyond that. And so, it's not just recordings and video content or, module content. You get us, in it to solve the problems. And so we weave our experiences with group, one-on-one, live, module content, as well as video. And quite frankly, every time I meet with someone, I seem to hear something new. And so it's just constant information, new videos that get added, new opportunities. And you get this community of people that are wanting to, truly bring the patient experience, patient-centered care back into the realm of the people that we all went into this for, and that was our clients, our patients, right? And so, and that is front and center the whole way through. And so that's what makes it, to me, like win-win-win across the board. I know we've been on here for quite some time, even with some of our tech glitches. Do you want to talk about how people can reach us, how they find me or you? I mean, obviously people can reach out to either of us. Do you want to explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so absolutely. You can reach out to either Andrea or myself to get a little bit more information, ask any questions that you have. We are transparent and open books about all of our experiences, everything that we do. And then in the comment section, we will shortly have a link to be able to get a brochure that we have put together with exactly the content of the program and what kind of where to start and where to go from here. So if you have any questions, by all means, reach out to either of us in the meantime. And then we will also post our email addresses in the comments so you can contact us that way as well. And we look forward to just having the conversation. If you're interested, if you're thinking about it, if you've been thinking about it, reach out to either one of us. We've been doing this for quite some time, and we're here to guide you, whatever that looks like for you. So I'm really excited to be on this journey with you, Andrea. I'm really excited to see our relationship grow as we've known each other for the last 5 years. So looking forward to helping as many people in the pharmacy profession and within the patient population that we can.